Speaker, the Home Secretary will be aware that 5 years ago I warned that if we didn't leave the ECHR and deport immediately those that arrived in Dover via small boats, that there would be an invasion. And sure enough, I was right.
Yeah.
Today, a further 600 young men already today have been processed through Dover. Perhaps the odd Iranian terrorist among them. Who knows?
How do you know? How do you know?
Does the Home Secretary accept
How do you know
that their policy of smash the gangs is a complete and total failure? And if that's the case, why should we believe anything else they said today?
Well, the honourable member, no one should be making these dangerous boat crossings. They undermine our border security and they put lives at risk. Criminal gangs who are organising these dangerous boats are making a fortune and profiting from these dangerous boat crossings. And that's why we need counter-terrorism style powers to be able to go after the gangs. That is the opportunity for him and his party to vote for those counter-terrorism powers tonight so that we can strengthen our border security. Previously, he and his party voted against those counter-terrorism powers. I think we need counter-terrorism style powers to strengthen our border security in order to be able to go after those criminal gangs. Does he? Mike Tapp.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The opposition like to talk and obsess over caps. Does the Minister agree that it might have been sensible for the previous government to place a cap on the number of Home Secretaries they had to churn through to deliver their failed open border project?
True. Yeah, my own firm is right. I think they had 8 Home Secretaries in the space of 8 years, and 2 of them were the same person.
Esther McVeigh.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Without a third country like Rwanda, can the Home Secretary tell the House where illegal immigrants whose country of origin cannot be established because they've destroyed the documentation will be deported to? Or is it the case that they cannot be deported, and so anyone who exploits that loophole can stay here with impunity?
Home Secretary.
Well, this government has increased returns since the election, 24,000 returns since the election. That includes a more than 20% increase in failed asylum cases and includes action that we are taking to deal with people who claim to have lost their papers and to ensure that we can deliver those returns. We will continue to support other policies, including working with the EU on issues around returns hubs. Let me just say to her, they had 2 years to run their Rwanda scheme. They spent £700 million and spent 4 volunteers. That was a waste of money, a failure for the taxpayer and a failed delivery too.
Luke Akehurst.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I welcome this statement and particularly the measures outlined to streamline deportation processes, ensuring they are fast, fair and effective. Can the Secretary of State remind the House what happened to levels of removals, including of foreign national offenders, on the party opposite's watch?
Home Secretary.
Well, the returns did drop by around a third under the previous Conservative government. I think that's very damaging. I think the rules should be respected and enforced. We also have inherited a system where the only people that they even seem to try to remove or get the information on were those who had been convicted with prison sentences. We believe that we need that information much more widely and a faster process to ensure that the rules and the laws are upheld.
Tim Farron.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Given that lengthy A&E, cancer treatment and ambulance waiting times in Cumbria are a direct result of the lack of social care workers, meaning that our hospitals are full to bursting, what assessment has she made of the damage this policy could do to patients and NHS workers in my communities, where the most regular experience we have of migrants is that they cared for us and our loved ones?
Secretary.
Well, we need to support social care and recognise the importance of that job, and that means tackling the long-term recruitment issues here in the UK and not simply always thinking that we could ignore those problems and turn to migration instead. He will know that there have been huge problems, including abuse and exploitation, as a result of that route, and 39,000 people who came here on a care worker visa, often in good faith, ended up being displaced when finally checks were introduced. That's why regional hubs have been introduced to ensure that employers can still recruit from those displaced workers rather than continuing to recruit from abroad.
Nadia Whittam.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Migrants are being scapegoated for problems that they didn't cause, and to be truthful, these arbitrary measures won't fix those problems, and they will harm migrants, people who need social care, our economy, anyone who fears racial abuse, which the rhetoric surrounding this emboldens. Why are we trying to ape reform when that will do nothing to improve our constituents' lives and just stoke more division?
Well, what I would say to my honourable friend is that in the space of just 4 years, we saw a huge increase in overseas recruitment at exactly the same time as training in the UK fell. Now, I think that is a real problem in the UK labour market, to have such steep increases at the same time as such deep problems in terms of training in the UK. And that's why I think it's so important to ensure that we link the immigration system with training and skills for the first time. That hasn't happened before. I think it's been the wrong approach to the labour market. It's right that we bring in those reforms. Of course, she's right to say we also recognise the huge contribution that people make as part of our country, and that we also do so in a way that respects people for the contribution they make, and that is embedded in our system. But we have to change this broken labour market approach.
Paula Denyer.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The Prime Minister's Island of Strangers speech sounded like something straight out of the Reform Trump playbook. Rather than alienating and devaluing migrants, recognising the need to increase the number of Brits who want to work in our health and care sectors, wouldn't the Minister prefer to support the Unison campaign for a certificate of common sponsorship to protect the working right of migrant workers who are working in unacceptable situations of exploitation, bordering on slavery and at threat of deportation? As a Labour member, would she not prefer to support that Unison campaign?
Home Secretary.
Well, one of the issues that we've highlighted in the White Paper is the importance of tackling exploitation, which is deeply damaging for those who have come to the UK in good faith, and also damaging for other employers as well. So one of the points we want to explore is making it easier for people to not be held to a single employer where there are problems with the sponsorship arrangements, and to make that system more effective so that it can tackle exploitation.
Sally Jameson.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I welcome today's White Paper, which actually brings some substantive reforms to our immigration system after over a decade of expensive rhetoric. But can the Home Secretary set out what further reforms that the government is considering for our asylum and appeal system, as well to the ludicrous hotel situation that we were left with by the last government?
Home Secretary.
Well, my honourable friend is right. We need to end asylum hotels, and that means we have to clear the shocking backlog that were left with by the previous government, who just stopped taking asylum decisions in the last few months in the run-up to the election. One of the measures we're also introducing, though, is new statutory timetables for appeals, because it's currently the appeal system that is holding up a lot of the issues in terms of the backlog. We need that through. That is part of the border security bill that we'll be able to vote on tonight, and that's why I hope all parties in this House will support it.
Mark Pritchard.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Can I welcome the Home Secretary's statement today? And it's in the national interest that the government get this right, and I hope that that will happen. I'm not convinced yet, to be honest, and we haven't seen much of the detail. But can I also support the Honourable Member for Clacton and his concerns around national security? I think that is something that should be taken more seriously. But this year, 10,500 people have crossed the English Channel, legal migrants. That is a record number for this period of time in any year previous. And I just saw nothing today in the Prime Minister's early leaked statement, or indeed the Home Secretary's statement, on a deterrent. Without a deterrent, you can have all the counter-terrorism commands, all the new laws, all the great statements. Nothing is going to change.
Secretary.
Well, this evening, Madam Deputy Speaker, we will be able to vote for a